Welcome to episode 1302 of The Sleeper and the Bust. I am Justin Mason, joined as always on Sundays by Jason Collette. How you doing, my friend?
1302. Holy crap. We're
Right?
over the 1300. Wow. Wow. Yeah, no, doing well, man. Hope you are. Got to go out and get some hiking done yesterday. So it's my favorite part about living in North Carolina is getting out and exploring waterfalls and different hikes. And so that was fun yesterday and paying for it today. But, worth it, as they say, as the kids will tell you. Worth it.
Yeah, I spent most of yesterday getting my pool set up so that way we go into the pool, and which is nice because we've got some 98-degree days coming up.
Yeah, I heard you had a heat wave coming.
Yeah.
Somebody that I work with, we were talking Friday afternoon. She's over in the East Bay area, and she was like, "Oh yeah, we got a heat wave coming." I was like, "Ooh," it's like heat wave for San Francisco area is like what 75, 80? And she's like, "Oh, 90s," and I'm like, "Oh,
Oh yeah, no, it's supposed to. I think where my wife works is supposed to hit like 103. So
keep it that way, man." I have my air off right now. It's been so nice here and Charlotte area, so keep it that way.
It's so weird. It's so weird though, because later in the week we're supposed to get back down into the 70s with lows in the 40s. So
and we wonder why the baseball's not going anywhere this year, right?
Yeah. I have no idea what's going on at this point. So, but we have some FAAB to talk about. Some interesting kind of guys that I don't think that either Paul or I have really discussed coming up on FAAB this week. So a lot of new names to kind of rattle around and see what we think in terms of what we're bidding this week. But let's start off with a little bit of news. Not good news. People just going to the IL left and right.
Is it ever good news right now?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it ever is good news. Both Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove going to the IL. Darvish, it sounds like it's just kind of a minor hamstring issue. Hopefully we'll only miss the kind of a minimum stay. Musgrove, this kind of seems to be a reoccurring issue since the elbow issues last year.
Yes.
Obviously you're holding on to Darvish, throwing him on your IL or onto your reserve list, and just kind of waiting it out. What are you doing with Musgrove at this point?
I mean, it's the second time, like you said, it's the second time this has popped up. And it's just once if it was an isolated incident, that's one thing. Second time this season that something's there, it's the old smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. This is becoming more than smoke. I'm concerned, and I would be making backup plans and expecting that backup plan to be my go forward plan. And if Musgrove does come back and it's okay, then great. But don't bank on it like, I'm just gonna keep streaming guys until he comes back. Again, second time, that's a larger concern than Darvish. It really sucks for Darvish because he's been pitching so well of late. And I mean, as a rotation, it's a good rotation. Matt Waldron has certainly been fun to have as somebody that nobody really had drafted, and he's had some really nice outings. Dylan Cease has been doing Dylan Cease things depending on the game with stuff. And there's another guy in the bullpen we'll talk about in a little bit who has really raised his fantasy profile of late.
Yeah, we'll definitely have some words about Jermaiah Estrada, who's just been unreal. As far as Musgrove goes, if you're in a real pinch in terms of like your bench spots, because you don't have bench or IL spots, or you don't have enough IL spots, I don't mind dropping Musgrove at this point. I don't think this is going to end particularly well. And so I'm not going to put myself in any sort of a bind from a fantasy perspective by holding on to a guy that I think there's a pretty good chance that he's going to be done for the season at some point.
Yeah, I mean, they also have to think about the long-term play on that. So if they push their luck right now and something goes poorly, that wipes them out of 24 and 25. Yeah. If they're able to look at something and say, hey, look, let's try to do something. Let's sit back and see what happens. There's a good chance that they can preserve some of 25. But if something does go wrong at this point of the season, and you shouldn't, how often have we said on this show, you should not rush the surgery. Surgery is no guarantee. There's absolutely no guarantee. You should absolutely try to do what you can to avoid surgery before going that way. So if they can come out, if this can be like Kyle Bradish, great. Because, I mean, let's rewind 3-4 months ago. How many people were like, why even mess around? Just go to surgery and get it done and come back next year. And, Bradish yesterday was the first time where he struggled and against Tampa Bay of all teams who can't hit lately, right? So that was really the first time Bradish has had a poor outing, but he's come back and pitched a lot better than a lot of people expected. And I would like to I mentioned this on Sirius XM yesterday afternoon because the person that was on before me had mentioned, like, he had drafted Garion, and I forgot Garion's last name, but he's in the Tout Ward draft. And he had mentioned that, I'm sorry?
Garion Thorne.
Thank you. Yes. He had mentioned that he had, Eric and Todd had mentioned that he had drafted Spencer Strider, and he's still in 8th place. And if you lose Spencer Strider, that's pretty good that you're still in 8th place. And he had mentioned, well, he had the foresight to draft Garrett Crochet in the 29th round. So it's like, I would like to see a team that whoever took Garrett Crochet and Kyle Bradish, because both of those guys were going like after round 24 for the most part. And like, where are you in the standings based off just those two guys alone? If they're on your team, where are you? Because that's definitely worked out for two guys that were mostly during draft season. We knew the talent for Crochet was there, but we were like, okay, this White Sox team is going to be horrible. And it mostly has been, but he has not been horrible. And he's still out there pitching longer than I thought he would. I mean, I'll take the L. I didn't think he'd still be on the mound as a starting pitcher at this point, but there he is.
I'm pretty sure, and I'm double checking right now, I've got both Bradish and Crochet in the league. I can tell you exactly where I'm at.
56 leagues and seeing where you're at.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly where I'm at in that league. Let's see. I'm in 8th, but it's not my pitching that has been the problem. My pitching has actually been like 3rd best in the league. So
but you're not like me. You're not like me and Ale Tal or Labor, where I've had 1 home run this week. 1.
Yeah, it's been a brutal year for offense. So
it is unbelievable what is, how things have. My team was rolling and it has absolutely hit a tank. But when I looked at it, unless something changed last night, I had 1 home run for the week, and it was by Santander. That was the only home run I had this week. And this is a team that has Stanton on it, and Varsho, and Rosarena, and Rizzo, and I have 1 home run. Jonah Heim, 1 homer total. It's been a rough week, but like you said, it has been a rough. We've talked often. We're still pacing about 11% behind home run to contact. When I looked at the numbers for the end of May, compared to the end of May last year, we're still about 11% down. So it is a real thing unless somebody goes in there and takes the knobs. It goes and turns them. We are where we're at. This is the new reality, and things will heat up, but things heat up last year too. And this is where we're at. So we kind of have to deal with it and see what happens, which is why we're all trying to spend our dollars on FAAB on offense wherever we can. Like go and spend money on Jonathan Rodriguez, who lasted a week, and now he got sent down, and it's like next man up.
Yep, and we'll talk about some of those next men up here in a minute. Let's move over to Zach Gallen. Similar to Darvish, hamstring strain. Doesn't sound like he's expected to miss more than 2 weeks. You're just holding him, right?
Yeah. Yep. If you had him, I mean, listeners will remember that was one guy that I really did not want to touch this year, only because I didn't know how well his body would hold up to the increased workload. But this hamstring isn't part of that. I mean, that can just happen fielding a bunt. Something apparently Boston Red Sox hate when opponents bunt against them. So I saw a story this week about that. I was like, I hate bunts too, but I'm not going to go out there and cry about it. I just hate when my team bunts. I don't care if the opposition bunts. I hate when my team bunts. And as I'm wearing college baseball stuff, because my team's in the regional, man, I tell you what, if you hate bunts, do not watch college baseball.
And I don't.
So bottom of the 8th, it's a tie game, 6-6, Alabama, UCF. Leadoff guy gets on a walk, like a 5-pitch walk. The next guy sack bunts him over. Yes, that guy did come around to score, so it's 7-6. Well, in the 9th inning, my team did the exact same thing. Yes, that guy came around and scored. But it's just like, it's just in the late innings, sack bunting and tie games after a leadoff walk. Oh, man. I can't. That's why I really can't get into college baseball too much. I'm sorry for those of you who love it, but oh, my God. Bunts got to go. Anyhow, let's go.
Speaking of the Boston Red Sox, Vaughn Grissom heads to the IL. At this point, I think you should have dropped him already in most formats, but if you're still rostering him, are you dropping him now?
Yeah, I mean, this is the second time with that, and it could, when he finally does come back. I mean, that trade obviously has not worked out well. Chris Sale, another guy who struggled yesterday, but that trade has not worked out well. And even if he does come back, David Hamilton has certainly been playing some nice baseball in his steed. And then even yesterday, it was Emmanuel Valdez had a couple of home runs in the game yesterday, and so he came up. So it's like they have options there. Bobby Dahlbeck is up because Grissom's down on the IL, and it gives them more right-handed bats as they're platooning their way around some things right now. But Hamilton's played really well since being presented with the opportunity, both at second base and shortstop. I've got to see him play a few games, and he's really done well in the field. I mean, we know he has speed. Just go look at his numbers the last couple of the year in the minors. A guy could fly. I mean, he's 9 for 9 stealing bases this year. The power that was in Worcester hasn't translated, but that's no shock. But he's handled himself very well in the field. I've been very impressed with him as somebody who had him at a couple of places last year as a very late round dart or FAAB pickup. It's nice to see him making the most of his opportunities right now, and that's David Hamilton.
Yeah. If Hamilton's still available in your league, I would definitely go pick him up. But Grissom, I think, is a pretty easy drop. I don't know if people remember, but I did mention this, that he lost like 17 pounds due to an illness while he was on the IL the first time. And it clearly was affecting him at the plate. And this may be kind of a lost season for Vaughn Grissom at this point. So, all right, let's talk about some FAAB. The Mets doing Mets things, sending down Christian Scott in spite of him pretty much being their best starting pitcher so far this year. They should have David Peterson back in the rotation here. Any interest in Peterson?
Yeah, Peterson, I always want to give him a chance because he doesn't hurt himself with walks. That's one of the things I've always enjoyed about David Peterson is when he's doing well, he's not walking guys, but it's a fine line to it. And as we saw with Christian Scott, there were times where he pitched really well, and there were times where he had some bumps in the road too. But Peterson would be a streaming option. So let's say you're one of those Musgrove guys, and you look at the options and say, okay, who are the matchups? Who do they have this week? Let's take a look at that and see what's there. Peterson would be somebody I would consider on a streaming option, but it would have to be one of the weaker lineups, given that the Mets just aren't winning games. So if you're going to stream somebody, you want to really hope to get more than just a ratio help here or there, and if some strikeouts, you'd like to get some wins too. So let's take a look at that and see where that is.
Yeah, so David Peterson is at Washington, and Washington is one of the worst teams in baseball in OPS against left-handed pitching this year. So it's a pretty good streaming opportunity.
All right, and caveat there though, the Mets are like the worst team in controlling the running game, and the Nats are one of the best teams in baseball in running.
That's true.
So you would hope a lefty and Peterson could control that and negate that. But if the Nats are on base, when they get on base, they run. And the Mets are just terrible at throwing people out. Absolutely terrible. So that could go either way. I would say, leaving the decision in your hands as the fantasy manager, folks. But to me, that's the risk with theirs. If they get on base, they're running, and there's really nothing the Mets can do to stop that.
Yeah, he would line up for a 2-start next week, I believe. Oh, no, actually, he won't line up for a 2-start next week because they've got a lot of days off because of the travel from London. So,
when's the London series? Was that
next
weekend?
Yeah, this weekend. Or next weekend, yeah. So
that factors into some of it because that's only a 2-game series, right?
Mm-hmm. They get 2 games off before and 1 game off after.
All right, so weekend, but I'm like weekend lineups, folks, like Park Fact. Like, I don't know if I want to touch any of that. If I recall, those were pretty high scoring games.
Yeah, they were pretty high scoring games. So in both the pitching or both pitchers for both teams, like they aren't necessarily like any of the studs. I mean, we'll see if Ranger Suarez even starts, but he's the only one I would consider a stud. You've got the other Phillies pitcher is going to be Taijuan Walker, and the Mets pitchers are Sean Manaea and Jose Quintana. So I would definitely not start any of my pitchers in England for
Yeah.
that series. I would start my hitters because I do think there's going to be a lot of offense.
All right, so I may have been a little harsher on the Mets than I'm looking at. Like, their caught stealing rate is 15%. So running opponents are 85% successful in stealing bases against them. And that's at second base. I'm not even looking at third base, but they're 85% successful in attempting those steals.
All right. Yeah, I don't mind streaming Peterson this week and actually next week, because when they do get back from London, it will be a matchup. He will get a matchup versus the Marlins. So
Yeah,
he's got two good starts over the next 2 weeks. So I don't mind taking that gamble and going after Peterson. I think he'll be at the top of my bid list for a lot of pitchers this week. Next guy is Spencer Schwellenbach, who is a prospect for the Braves, got called up, made his debut, had a mediocre start at best. Any interest there in Schwellenbach?
Man, I hope he can. Who did he hit in the face?
Oh, I didn't even
highlight.
that.
He threw a pitch on somebody who was trying to square on to bunt. Here we are coming back to bunts, and he almost drilled somebody in the face. I happened to catch a highlight because I've been out and about. This is like graduation party season, so I've been out and about for multiple things. But like, I hope that's not something that lingers and bounces and hangs around, because sometimes you see folks with that. But I mean, when you look at just the stat scouting, the numbers are great, and it's worth. And you would think Atlanta's got to come out of this slump at some point. Atlanta's not playing great baseball right now. And so it's like, normally we would say, oh, it's, they're Atlanta, they'll get plenty of offense, whatever, but they're not getting plenty of offense right now. I mean, they lose Acuna, who was underperforming as it was, and the rest of the lineup just hasn't been able to pick up enough slack. Getting Sean Murphy back certainly helps with things as well. But yeah, I look at this again and say, yeah, some interest in this, but I'm hoping that, we can see what's, how much is he going to be able to pitch? Because he started the season, looking over here, he started in high A ball. He went from high double A to the majors. And he has 50 innings of work this year. And he had 65 last year between things, but that's a rapid ascension. No, based off my track record, I don't like guys skipping AAA. I want the experience. He barely got to change clothes in AA, and there he is in the majors. So I'll pass.
Yeah, he is at Boston this week, so I don't know if that's one you want to take a gamble on, even with Boston being down. I think in deeper leagues, you're probably taking the gamble here, unless you can kind of prioritize a guy like David Peterson. There's so few options at this point in 15-team leagues. But in 10s and 12s, I think I'm waiting. Like you said, he started the year in high A, only threw 13 innings in AA. He has shown really good walk rates over the course of his career, and actually, hasn't really had a homer problem at any point. The command is a little bit spotty. But the strikeout rates have been pretty high. So I think this is a guy that I put on my watch list in most formats. I'm not necessarily picking up outside of 15-team leagues. The next guy we're talking about is Albert Suarez. He's jumping into the rotation in Baltimore with their loss of Dean Kremer and John Means. I think this is kind of an audition time for him and the Orioles to kind of see, like, hey, is this a guy that we can move forward with the rest of the season, or are we going to have to make some aggressive moves at the trade deadline with all of our minor league depth? Where are you at on Albert Suarez?
I'd like him better than the previous two guys we've discussed. Yeah, obviously, because of team context, Baltimore will provide offensive support. They are a team that could get some wins. Suarez is a guy that's been able to work 5+ innings. This will be his second time in the rotation. We look at where he is, like on the upcoming schedule. We saw him. He was a no decision against Tampa Bay on Friday. His next outing will be at Toronto, which is a must start these days. I mean, outside of Vladimir Guerrero and David Schneider, really nobody's hitting there. And they're in the same rut they were last year. And then it's another home start against the Rays. So you can at least get 2 nice starts out of him. But then his next start would be a start against the Phillies. So that's where it's a week by week situation. That said, I still like him better than Peterson or Howard Schnellenberger. I forgot the kid's name. I don't know. That's all that came to mind.
Spencer Schwellenbach. Yeah,
sounds like a German beer house.
I like Suarez quite a bit. He's been very, very impressive. Even moving from the rotation to the bullpen back to the rotation, he doesn't seem like he's missed a beat at any point, kind of going back and forth. Now, I still think that he may lose his rotation spot again at some point if the Orioles get healthy or once they make trades. So you got to think at this point the Orioles are looking for some sort of big move. A big
What's
piece
out there though?
There's always something out there.
Like, I keep I've seen people picking up Cade Povich in outings, and I don't blame them. We've talked about Povich on this podcast earlier this year. He's got 11 starts down in AAA Norfolk. He's got 75 strikeouts and 56 and 2/3. He's only allowed 5 home runs down there, and has walked 21. But he's pitched to a 3.18 ERA, and he's 5-1 down there for Norfolk. And I saw somebody tried to pick him up in AL Labor. He wasn't eligible yet because you can't pick up those types of guys, but he did get picked up in AL Tout where you can. Just somebody had to put him in their lineup this week. So somebody was banking on Povich coming up with the injuries, but instead they went that route. So it's kind of weird to me that they haven't given Povich that. I mean, I got to see him pitch in person here in Charlotte. Was very impressed with what he can do. We're talking about a guy who's had not triple digit, but K9s in double-digit ranges all the way throughout his minor league career. And even this year, he's striking out a third of the guys he's facing. He's got a 23.4 strikeout minus walk ratio. All the indicators are there. Like, this guy could pitch. Let's get him into the majors. They just haven't done it yet for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, maybe the Blue Jays could be looking to trade some guys at some point. You've got, Yusei Kikuchi, who is a free agent. After this year, he's pitched well this year. I want to say Chris Bassett. No, Chris Bassett still has one more year.
Kikuchi would be a decent fit there because of the Baltimore situation, lefty there, and having that situation. So, yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens at the deadline. But Povich, either call him up or trade him as part of that. And I'm just kind of blows my mind that they haven't gotten him up yet.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little surprised as well, especially with all the injuries to this rotation, why they haven't considered him. Maybe they're just waiting a little bit longer. They've been pretty conservative with some of their guys down in the minor leagues. So you only have so many major league roster spots as part of the problem as well. Let's move over to some bullpen situations. Edwin Diaz hits the IL this week. It looked like he was starting to get this job back. Who do you think is going to lead the Mets bullpen in saves for the next few weeks or maybe months, depending on how long Edwin Diaz is out for?
We've done this dance so many times. It comes down to, we all look at this like, hey, from a pure stuff thing, this is Reed Garrett, hands down, pure stuff. But how many times has it not been the stuff guy? And we and there's a veteran, there's Ottavino, who, by the way, blew a save and took an L already this week. So it's just I want to say this should be Garrett's. If you've watched Garrett pitch, you're like, oh, yeah, this is the guy. But I mean, Ottavino's no slouch either. He's just had a tough week. Mets have had a tough year. So I could see it being a push. And I'm not trying to take the easy way out on this, but how many times have we seen the manager go with the vet over the inexperience and don't want to disrupt that chain of hey, I like using this guy in the high leverage and then bring somebody else in the close situation. So I'll say Ottavino just because he has the experience. He's done it before multiple times, even though, again, he's had a rough week.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If the Mets were competitive this year, I might go, hey, maybe they do put Reed Garrett in the ninth and try to lock that down with the guy who's been their best reliever this year. But the Mets are not in contention. They're 24-34 right now. They're likely going to be sellers at the deadline. And if they want to boost up Ottavino's price a little bit, getting him some saves here, getting him right over the course of the next month and a half is likely the move. So I think it's going to be Ottavino. He's the guy with experience. He's the guy with a contract. I think he's more likely than not to be the guy. This also could turn into just a weird committee, right? They've got Jake Diekman, who they could use when they have lefties coming up. So it may be a shared role between all three guys. But I think if I was betting on who is going to be leading this team in saves until Edwin Diaz comes back, it's Adam Ottavino for sure. Let's move over to the Blue Jays bullpen. They lost Jordan Romano this weekend to the IL. Is Yimi Garcia the guy, or is there somebody else you're pegging?
Does it matter? And I'm not even being facetious. I'm looking over on one of my other screens because as somebody who has Romano, or Romano, as you Canadians broadcasters like to call him. So I look at it, and I had Chad Green in AL Tout, so it's an easy switch for me. But the Jays have had all of 3 saves since Mother's Day, and they only had 5 saves this entire month. Romano got 4 saves. I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4. He's had 4 saves this entire month. This team is getting a save a week, if that. They haven't had a save. They've had 1 save since May 20th, and we're now on June 2nd as we're recording this. They're just not getting saves. Both these guys, and this is a little different than situation than New York. Garcia and Green, who I would think are the 2 best candidates for this, and I don't know why I end up watching a lot of Toronto games. I do, but these are the 2 best candidates for this job. They both have the experience. They're Garcia is pitching better right now. Green has had, before his injury, had pitched well, and he really pitched well late last year, but he still hasn't been able to put together the back-to-back. And even as you look at how they've managed him, he pitched Tuesday for 12 pitches, and he pitched on Friday for 11 pitches. And then Garcia, these guys are both members of the A bullpen, but problem is Toronto uses their B bullpen a lot because they're down in games because they're not scoring runs, and the pitching staff has done their part for the most part. It's just they've just struggled to stay in games. So, like I said, I don't know if it matters much. They're getting about a 1 save chance a week, and they've had trouble converting those save chances. So I guess go with Garcia here. But Green's, if you're in a deeper AL league like me, where I've got Green and Tout and Labor, I'm using Green in my lineup right now.
Yeah, I think Yimi Garcia is probably the guy moving forward. But like you said, they're just not a team getting a lot of saves right now. But if you're save needy, I think I would probably go for Garcia over going for Adam Ottavino. While Ottavino has a lot of experience saving games, I think the Mets are worse than the Blue Jays, and it looks like that could turn easily into a committee, whereas I think Garcia is pretty much the guy moving forward until Romano comes back. Now, Romano did get an MRI. There was no structural damage found in the elbow, so they're hoping that this is not a long IL stint, but this is also the second time he's gone to the IL with that elbow issue this year, so it is pretty concerning at this point. All right, let's talk about a guy who is not pretty concerning, and that is the aforementioned Jermaiah Estrada, who has just been unreal. I know you were a big fan of his when he was in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
He never seemed to get the actual chance that he needed to get before moving over to San Diego. Unfortunately, San Diego, he's kind of locked behind the number 1 guy in terms of getting saves behind Robert Suarez. But what are your thoughts on Jermaiah Estrada for fantasy? Because it seems like all he does is strike guys out.
Yeah, and to be clear, I was a fan of him because he popped out on Eno's Pitching Plus model. You look at it, you're like, okay, I'm always trying to look for late inning reliever types, like what's there. And you could see like the models were like, this guy has got potential, but the results never release the potential. And then, this week I texted our group text. I'm like, when the results finally catch up to the potential, because he had struck out 13 consecutive batters. And then when that happened, then he's only struck out 2 of his last 10. So clearly slumping now. But one of the things he did was, for those watching the video, he added a new pitch, and that always sings well to my heart. But he added a splitter to it, and it's really more of a changeup splitter type of grip. And it's you watch some highlights, you're like, oh my God, look at that pitch. Look how it's behaving. And, between what Pitching Ninja had shown on some of his and reading the Lance Brodzowski's Substack notes on it, like, he's like, wait, why didn't he throw this pitch with the Cubs when he had the opportunity to do so? But, he's definitely got the swing and miss in his game. And that pitch is just really tough for hitters to pick up. But, when you look at the numbers, 18 innings, 30 strikeouts, he's only allowed 1 home run. I mean, he's helping you across the categories, even throwing in 2 wins with it. So if you are in a very deep mixed league, if you're 15, 18, maybe a chance, and you got a struggling closer, you're just trying to figure out what to do, that may be an option. NL, he's gone. I mean, he's already gone in a couple of my 15-team mixed leagues. He got picked up last weekend. The strikeout streak, because I checked. I'm like, let's see where he's available, because I was considering writing about him this week, and I was like, he's already gone in all the leagues I play in.
Yeah, he's still available in a lot of 15-team leagues, though, and then the majority of 10 and 12-team leagues. And if you're looking for a guy, now, obviously, in most leagues where, saves are kind of the king of the relief pitcher market, you may not be able to really use him. But in leagues where, strikeouts can move, especially like daily moves leagues where you're, already moving guys in and out of your pitching staff, on a daily basis, being able to keep a guy like Jermaiah Estrada in your lineup is really valuable, and he will be a guy that I know I target this week, especially because if something were to happen to Robert Suarez, not that I think anything is going to happen, but he is an older pitcher who's got an injury history. If something were to happen, Jermaiah Estrada looks like pretty easly the next man up in San Diego. So.
Yeah, definitely. And the only home run he's allowed this season, I just looked, was to Jordan Beck back on May 15th. He allowed a home run to Jordan Beck in a game where the Padres lost 8-0.
All right, let's move on to the offensive side of things, and we'll talk about Jose Abreu. He hit his first home run. He is back with the Astros, playing regularly. Any interest in Jose Abreu?
What is it about June 1st and Jose Abreu hitting home runs? Because if you recall, last year, his first home run came in Oakland on June 1st, I believe. Or June, it had to be like June 1st, June 2nd last year. I haven't seen to see, like, I was reading something that said, hey, Jose Abreu has worked on his swing down in the complex league. So, let's see what it looks like and what happens to it. But no, I'll wait around and let somebody else take the chance on that. Even though I am, hurting for offense in multiple places. I don't know if I can take on that. I'd rather, take a chance with something else. Yeah, he did home run. He did homer on, trivia note. No, I'm sorry. It was June 9th. Wow, it was later. I know it took him a while to get his first home run last year, but he did finally hit it. And, I guess he can. Where was yesterday's game? Oh, that was a Seattle game. Because Framber.
No, it was Minnesota. It was home versus Minnesota.
Oh, it was home. So let me guess, pull shot in the Crawford boxes?
I didn't see it, honestly. I'm sure that's exactly what it was, and I can probably, it looks like it might have been
a home run in one of 30 parks, right? One of those situations.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, obviously he's back. He's a big name. He's going to be probably a popular pickup, especially after hitting a home run. It's only been 4 games, so you don't want to try to take too much from it. But nothing looks any better than it was. And he's hitting 8th in this lineup right now. He's hit 8th in every single game, striking out at a 46% rate since returning. I think Jose Abreu is just washed at this point.
It went 376, a home run in 19 of 30 parks. So I rescind the joke, but I agree. It's, unless something really turns around, I don't know what they think is possible here, but they're paying him, so they got to continue to.
It was an awful contract, but I think the Astros have shown, like, they're a smart organization. If they just have to eat that money, they'll eat that money. Like, I don't think they're going to continue to run him out there if he's just god awful.
So he gets a home run on a ball hit 400 to 376 feet. Byron Buxton hit one 416 feet with an expected batting average of 940. That was a flyout.
Oh, wow.
Gotta love baseball, man.
It's such a weird sport, but
it would have been a home run in 23 parks. Minute Maid, not one of them.
Let's talk about a power hitter who has been really, really good since coming up. That's Mark Vientos. He's hit 340, 386, 642, 4 home runs so far for the Mets, playing pretty much every day at third base. Where are you at on Mark Vientos?
Happy for him. Vientos has been kind of like in the Estrada group. Somebody I advocated for last year did not materialize. I ended up getting him, I think, I'm one in DC this year for things. And so, like you said, he's playing every day, and he's been hitting. I'm looking at he's played hitting 4th, 6th, and hit 7th in one of the games this week. So, but he's playing out there every day. And the bat was never the question. It was always the defense. Where is that defense going to play? And right now, they have him out there at third base because they gave up on the Brett Beatty situation and said, let's go this way with Vientos. So happy for him. But when you're rattling off those numbers, I thought we were going to talk about Miguel Andujar. I mean, come on. The guy made me the AL player of the week. 2 homers, 12 RBIs, a stolen base.
Are we really falling for Miguel? I mean, we might as well just say, like, we could just like lump them together. I mean, because they're around the same player. These are guys who are not good defensively, that strike out way too much. And I know Vientos is striking out at a sub 20% rate. If you've heard any of my other podcasts over the last 2 weeks, you're going to hear a very, very familiar kind of statement on Vientos. I get that he is hot right now. He's crushing the ball, 340 average, and I think a 310 XBA. His string strike rate is still 16%. His zone contact rate is still 77%. These are not skills that are going to translate to a 20% strikeout rate. There are skills that are going to transfer more to a 35% strikeout rate. He is the same guy. Like, he is who we thought he was. And while you may want to ride the hot streak for a little bit, and hey, we were talking earlier in the podcast about how much power is down, how difficult power is to find, especially in your 15-team league. This is available in a few of my leagues. I'm probably going to bid on him because I need power, but he's probably going to hit like 225. So enjoy this hot streak, but it's going to be over very, very soon.
Meanwhile, Andujar, you got to hear these numbers. His swinging strike rate is 0.9% right now. His zone contact rate is 100%. He has not accepted a walk in 30 plate appearances right now. And he is swinging about half the time. But honestly, it's a fun story because, like, he was left. It's always like the fantasy ghost. I mean, this dude was left for dead. And I remember I have him in AL Tout. I actually took him as a reserve at the draft, and I had somebody else because I couldn't get Brent Rooker out of my head. Brent Rooker was somebody nobody was looking at last year, and he gets the chance in Oakland, and he's continuing to do Brent Rooker things. And for me, I looked at Andujar. It's like they have no other talent. If he can get out here and hit, he's going to play every day. And so, like, he's been in my lineup, 6 runs, 12 RBIs, 2 home runs, a stolen base, and hitting 448. Obviously, none of that's going to persist, but I'm glad it's in my lineup and not on my bench. So
it's such an interesting batted ball profile too, because he's got like a 54% ground ball rate, 18% fly ball rate, home run to fly ball 40%. Like, yeah, I mean, these are gonna, it is a lot easier to hit the ball hard on the ground, as we've talked about, than it is to hit it in the air. These numbers will kind of catch up to him a little bit, but
one right now,
yeah, it's great to see. Like you said, 100% zone contact is insane. You got to wonder, like, at what point do pitchers go, hey, let's go out of the zone on a guy with a career 40% O swing? Because right now they're attacking the zone at an almost 46% clip, which is about 3 to 4% above league average. So I think pitchers will adjust to Andujar, and we'll see if he can adjust back with it.
And the thing is, I mean, bat to ball honestly has never been a problem for him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his strike, he's always made a lot of contact. Even when you go back and look at 2018, bat to ball has never been a problem. And one of the things when I was looking at him this past offseason and looking at what he did with AAA, and like the Pirates really never gave him a good chance, but in AAA, he hit 338, 404, 536, and his walk and strikeout ratio were nearly identical. So it's like, Oakland, you're going to have the chance. It's the last home for misfit toys type of situation. And so far, he's making the most of it. But I seriously think he's probably going to be the AL player of the week this week.
Probably should be, considering what he's done so far. So, yeah, I mean, Andujar, like one of those guys in 15-team leagues that makes sense because it's really, really hard to fill out a roster, especially when you get hit by injuries. So let's move over to Nick Gonzales, who is a much different kind of player, second baseman. Not a ton of power, not a ton of speed, but he is playing pretty well right now. Where are you at on Nick Gonzales?
Nowhere. Because I have never had any exposure to Nick Gonzales. I was just making sure he was still in the Pirate situation. He is hitting well. He was hitting very well in AAA this year. But he did not hit well last year in majors, and even the minors was like, but he's making the most of his opportunity right now. So again, ride the hot streak, I guess.
Yeah,
what else to say here?
He is making a lot of zone contact. He's got like 89% zone contact right now, but he's also got a swing strike rate of over 15%. Swing outside the zone quite a bit. So like this great batting average he's been running with, probably not going to stick around. I think he's probably more of like a 270 hitter at best. And we're talking about a 270 hitter that like doesn't have a ton of power or a ton of speed. And so it's going to be kind of empty. He's playing pretty regularly right now, playing every day for the Pirates. And so he can be an accumulator of sorts, but like, I don't think this is a massive difference maker. I think he's just more of a kind of high floor guy as opposed to a high ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
What about Oscar Colas? Colas had a lot of hype on him when he, not coming into this year, but coming into last year, kind of fell flat on his face. People got a little bit excited about him in preseason again, didn't make the team. He's now back with the White Sox, has an opportunity to play regularly because their team is pretty beat up, especially in the outfield. Where are you at on Oscar Colas?
Maybe because I've seen him play too many times here locally, since he's with Charlotte. I'm not there. And one of the things I can't figure out is like, go look at his stats right now. Like his strikeout rate's below 20% for the first time ever in his career, and his walk rate's triple what it used to be. And I don't know how much of that remember the challenge system's in place here. And I know there's been some discussion about the AAA strike zone and whatnot impacting things, but I don't know how much of that is him changing his approach, or how much of that is him benefiting from some of the stuff with the strike zone that they're playing with in AAA. But I've probably seen 6-7 games of him this year, and there hasn't been a memorable moment. There hasn't been really anything where I've like looked at him and like, he should be in the major leagues. That's just my gut opinion.
Yeah, I wonder if he is going to be looking at the epitome of a quad A player, where he's probably too good for AAA, but not good enough for the majors. There is power in the bat, and the one nice thing I do like to see in terms of improvement from this year, or from last year to this year, is that the swing and strike rate in AAA was down towards 10%. I'll take that, right? Like,
right.
A guy who's had problems with striking out, who has power, if he's not swinging and missing a lot, like that is an intriguing development. The question is, how much is he going to play in Washington? Right now it looks like he is kind of, a strong side platoon role. He is hitting 7th today in the lineup. So we'll get to see him a little bit more. I think in deeper leagues, you might take a gamble and, maybe put him on your bench and kind of see what you got. But this is a complete lottery ticket dart throw type of guy. We haven't seen anything from him in the majors or the minors to make us think that he's going to be successful. All right, let's finish out with Jason Dominguez, who's working his way back. He's in the minor leagues on a minor league rehab assignment, killing the ball right now in the minors. Is this a guy you would pick up and stash for when he comes back, or is there not going to be enough playing time in a loaded situation in New York?
That's the thing. To me, it's the latter. I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday at one of those aforementioned graduation parties who's a Yankee fan. And like, we're talking about, they haven't had a serious offensive core injury. I mean, it's like, John Birdie just left. That's not core. And DJ LeMahieu had a problem, but that's not core. It's like, I'm talking about Judge, I'm talking about Soto, I'm talking about Verdugo, talking about Stanton, and Rizzo. Like, none of those guys have had any problems. And so to me, with Dominguez, you're not calling him up to sit. You want him if when he comes off the IL, because I believe he's on a 60-day IL, they can do what the Rays did with Shane Baz and just activate him and assign him to the minor leagues, because you want him playing every day. You don't want him up like Trent Grisham and Jermaiah Jones, who are playing like once every other Sunday. It is kind of surprising that the Yankees have been able to stay as healthy as they have, given that Aaron Boone is pretty much rolling out the same lineup every single day. I mean, they did let Judge DH the other day, but for the most part, they are putting these guys out there every day. And Yankee fans, fantasy managers with Yankee players hope that the health stays there. It's just we haven't seen this type of health track record from the Yankees ever. It's always been something that pops up, and so far nothing on the hitting side. Yes, I know Garrett Cole, but that was there to start the season, and Clark Schmidt just recently hit the IL as well. But that team's been relatively healthy right now, and so for me, I don't want Dominguez because you have to anticipate two moves. Him getting promoted and somebody in the regular lineup getting hurt to create the time for him. Otherwise, he's going to Scranton.
Yeah, I have the same kind of issues, right? It's not a matter of talent for Dominguez. I think Dominguez probably should be up at the majors. I just don't know. I mean, he's clearly, like, obviously he's not going to displace Soto or Judge, right? So it's a question of, do the Yankees think that he is better than Alex Verdugo? And Verdugo's played fairly well and is hitting like fifth in this lineup regularly. And Stanton's been great this year. So it's really hard to like push Stanton off that DH spot. So I just don't know how they come up with the solution. Maybe Dominguez is a part of a trade or something like that. Or I don't know that they want to move on from Dominguez, especially when Soto's likely going to be somewhere else next year. But I have a really hard time figuring out where Dominguez is going to play. And so now this obviously could work itself out here over the course of the next few weeks. Maybe they just say we're going to slow roast Dominguez in the minor leagues on his rehab assignment, or officially like just say he's going to stay in AAA until someone gets hurt. This is a team with a lot of injury history, right? I mean, Stan's been injured quite a bit. Judge has been injured quite a bit. So maybe something happens where it kind of makes the decision a lot easier for them. But I don't know that you can roster him and wait, especially if you don't have any sort of minor league slots or IL spots.
Yeah, sometimes like you said, sometimes they work out. The injury happens, like, oh hey, like the whole LeMahieu Birdie thing. Birdie hurt his calf just as LeMahieu was coming back. But that's a minor thing. They're not, again, there's a reason why they're carrying Jones and they're carrying Grisham, because apparently they're cool with just sitting around and collecting that major league per diem and enjoying the major league perks and playing on a winning team. So they're going to get some kind of playoff share out of it too, because they've been around long enough this season. So we will see where it all goes.
Yep. All right, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Jason, where you ready? Everybody can be reached on social media and plug anything you got going on.
So I wrote about this week at RotoWire with how, coming into the season, Randy Arozarena and Adolis Garcia were, right there neck and neck, and they have taken divergent paths since. Garcia is pretty much this guy he's always been, whereas Arozarena is bad, and it's been bad for a while, and actually going back into the summer of 23. And so wrote about that, and hopefully, there's some signs of life, because a lot of us took him anywhere from the third to the fifth round, and he is performing more like a 33rd to 35th round pick. So you'll see there. Did make a trade in AL tout with Eric Samolsky. I have a team desperate for some offense, and I've got plenty of steals. So I swapped out Jose Caballero and Chris Paddock to him for Trevor Larnach, and banking on Michael Massey's back not being too bad, so he can come back, because I need the offense. So I made that trade, and that was nice to work through some things there. And then, just looking at this week. Everything's good this week, and we'll be recording this coming Sunday. But then Father's Day weekend, I know I'm out. I don't know about you, but Father's Day, I'm taking my kids to Atlanta to go watch the Braves beat up on the Rays. I'm just getting my mindset in the right place now. So going to Atlanta for Saturday and Sunday to go watch some baseball and enjoy Father's Day in that regard, and then drive back. So just hopefully we can get some stuff done next week, and then we'll see what Father's Day. And then actually for me, the next 2 weeks, because I also have I have to travel to Denver the weekend after Father's Day. So I'm out the 16th and the 23rd with things.
Well,
Listeners,
I
but
will.
Denver, let me know.
I will try to maybe get some guests to come on and chat with me in your absence. Father's Day weekend, maybe we will take off. We'll both take off completely, so I can just sleep in. It's like the one day a year I get to sleep in. You can reach me on social media, Justin Mason FWFB, rating 5 days a week at Fangraphs, 3 days a week at Fantasy Pros, and doing the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast on top of this one. That will do it for this episode. For Jason and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
Thanks for listening.